Free agency is done. Now let's review and also respond to our fan poll questions.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this Friday, July 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. If you follow me on X at Monoman12, follow the show account anywhere you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube, you can follow it on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. On today's show, we are going to look back at everything with this free agency period for the Panthers and spend the 3 segments really breaking down our poll questions that we here at Locked On Panthers ask the fans. So this is really about the fans getting their say on the show today to things that we asked you guys. So, Nick, welcome back to the show, first of all, on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. And man, as now we are hitting here on July 11th, most of the big transactions are done for teams. Still a little bit of work to do for the Panthers if they are to get cap compliant, which we will see what happens coming up based on injuries. But when you look at this Florida Panthers team and just how they've managed just the summer overall together with bringing the band back, I mean, how are you feeling? Because I love looking at the page and just seeing familiar names.
So I was thinking of a way to put this, but it was excitingly boring in a way because if you think about it, this team has done something that not many franchises have been able to do. They were able to negotiate ridiculous deals for 3 players to stick with the team so that not only do they keep the window open, but they keep the window open for cups, not just trying, but to hopefully win 3 in a row, 4 in a row, kind of like we saw in the 80s. But it was surprising just because, when we came to July 1st, we didn't know who was going to sign, who was going to go. And, it was like last summer, we had to let go of some guys and, like in Brandon Montour, who got the bag out in Seattle. I would have loved to have him still here, but, that's the cost of doing business. And the fact that Zito was able to find a way, it's exciting. And we can probably take the rest of the summer now and just relax a little bit, enjoy the time, and come back in September refreshed.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of fans are definitely doing so when it comes to the summer, knowing that it's the same faces. And I mean, hey, winning back-to-back Stanley Cups, it really has a lot for the fan base to look forward to, especially because the fact is that 32 teams, and for one to win it 2 times in a row, not only win it once with the level of difficulty, but the fact is that coming back with a short summer and getting another short summer, and when you had a short summer 2 years prior to that, is once again impressive. The fact that the Panthers have just been able to still be at the top of the NHL world in that way with those. But one of the poll questions that I first had here on the show to kick off some of the theme of today's show is the Panthers are plus 700 to three-peat as Stanley Cup champions. And I asked if that how the fans felt about this, and these were the answer choices. I wanted to make them a little interesting, not just your typical yes or no. So the answer choices were as they should. Second one was wish they doubt us more. Next one was play the games, and the other one is it's over. Give us the cup. So The one that got the most answers was as they should at 53%. Wish they'd doubt us more at 33%. Play the games at 6%, and it's over. Give us the cup at 8%. That's the poll on X, and the poll on Instagram. If I can pull it up, real quick, it is 46, 26, 15, and 12 for a good amount of voters as well there. So love the fact that they are once again favorites, and it's no surprise that they are, based on the fact is that very few guys have moved on, and it was complementary pieces, a backup goaltender, a sixth defenseman. It's not like last year where a big part of your PK and Kevin Stenlin is one that walks away. Everyone who was basically part of the team is back. You have and really the only question going into really next season is who's going to be filling up the quarterback spot on power play too. That's one of the biggest questions. And to think that Bill Zito filling this spot out, I mean, it's not surprising that a majority of the fans are just saying, hey, as they should.
Yeah, and it was tough to take last year because I think everybody was still on the Oilers bandwagon saying that they were going to come in and that they were the favorites for the cup. And I got to be honest, like they didn't really show me anything different than they did the year previous that would make them a cup favorite. They ran out of gas this year. They just couldn't keep up with the depth of the Panthers. But with that being said, I think it's anybody's game. I think that's what I love about hockey is that it's so every year is going to be different. You may have similar teams in the playoffs, but by no means are you going to have the same teams, in the final every single year. So some teams got better, definitely. Some teams kind of just stayed the course, and some teams went down. So we'll have to see. Panthers have to be the favorite. They're the champs for the last 2 years, give them their respect, which is great. And thank you for Mikhail Samuelsson for actually saying that during the draft. I think they're the Canucks were the only team to do it in the last 2 years. So respect. But I think there's still going to be a chip on their shoulder because people are still going to say, hey, you guys used Kachuk's LTIR money to grab Marchand and all that. Now we're probably going to have to put him on TIR again. But to me, having 3 seasons in a row of 82 games plus the playoffs going to the final, I would love to see any team within the last decade who had a chance to win back-to-back cups or even go to 3 cups probably do the same, because that was the big argument about the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Like they were tired. They've gone to 3 cups in a row. It's like, well, the Panthers are kind of proving that like maybe that's not such an issue at all. So
good point.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the Panthers are right where they are, but there will be some adversity along the way, and there will be a time during the season where maybe 2 or 3 teams will be on top of them, and I guarantee you, the Carolina Hurricanes are going to be one of them again.
And it's funny because as far as last year, my approach was, okay, just get to the playoffs, win a few rounds again, and then, okay, is this team that is ready to knock the door open again and to prove to the hockey world that they are the elite of the elite. And it's funny because once they won the Tampa Bay series, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'm more than confident. And a lot of people were thinking winner of Tampa Bay, Florida is going to be the representative in the final. It turned out to be true. And hey, the Panthers are once again the champions there. But this time around, it's going to be to the point where they go into the playoff series, even if their last wild card spot or top seed President's Trophy, it's just thinking, okay, the expectation is win or championship or bust. No excuses about it. So I guess that's a different way of viewing things from going to the first to the second, for the second of trying to get a third, where it's just nothing else matters but cup number 3 and just trying to get a little bit of that piece of history, something that we haven't seen in a long time in the NHL. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more of our poll questions on the surprises of re-signings, which Nick alluded to a little bit. We're going to discuss that and which is a player that we would so not want to see go the most. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. And have you ever decided last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stand. That's where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Segment 2 here on this Friday, July 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Armando Velez here with Nich Fairbanks on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. So, Nick, biggest surprise when it comes to the players re-signing. So, the poll that I ran was Marchand, Bennett, Ekblad, and Nosek. So 52% of the poll says Marchand, 39% of it says Ekblad, while 5% says Bennett, and Nosek is right at a 4%. The Instagram, let me look at that up real quick. A little closer. 45 for Marchand, 44 for Ekblad, Bennett 6, and Nosek at 5. So what would you say is what side do you lean on as far as like surprises of re-signing players?
Honestly, Ekblad, just due to the massive pay cut that he did take. I had said on here and then on other shows that he was going to have to take a pay cut, and it's going to have to be in the realm of maybe $5.5 million. And the fact that Zito was able to get him in just a little bit over that was amazing. Plus, I think he had the biggest market, to be honest. I mean, with the position he plays and what he brings, he could have gone out $9.5 million to, almost any team that wanted to offer him. But at the end of the day, I think all these players know that window's open and they know what's at stake. So Marchand, to me, I think him and Benny kind of let it out of the bag like right after the Cup final happened and the celebration was going. I think they knew they were coming back. I mean, I think I remember one video with Marchand was like, "Hey man, you gonna sign for like another year or 2 years?" And he's just like, 2, at least 4 years. So like to me, like those deals were done. I think it just came down to Ekblad and making sure like, hey, like we want you here. I don't know if we want to go as long as you want, but we'll do it if you can meet us at this number, and everything worked out.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. It's not also because of the number that he came back at, but it was just all the reporting that was going on around it. I mean, I follow a page specifically on X, NHL Rumors Report, and sometimes I can get a little bit too married to some of the tweets that come out of it, and just thinking of, I know during the time of year, whether it's trade deadline, free agency, that's when you shouldn't get married to a lot of what's being reported, because that sometimes that could make you go into certain speculations of what direction it's going to go, because a lot of them said Ekblad is going to market, Ekblad is going to market, Ekblad is going to market, and to the point where I believed it. And even the way we were making content and the way we were talking about it, we were we were definitely talking about it to the point of, it seemed like a 99.9999% chance that Bennett was staying based on, especially after what he said at Club 11.
Yeah.
So, okay, we were under that impression. We're under the impression that maybe a Marchand, okay, I would, but then when the whole, when it was multiple reporters saying Ekblad going to market, that's where I was just thinking, and he's in late 20s as well. That's when you have to get your big deal. But Ekblad even spoke about it once again about family off the ice. It was more than just winning and losing, the community that they built. And also he spoke about how the players kind of talk to each other during negotiations, but you don't want to tell another, paraphrasing this, not trying to convince another person to stay. So it can be a little awkward. I can only imagine, but knowing how badly the group wanted to keep the band together also speaks volumes.
Yeah. And, I grew up with an adage that you never talk about your pay with other coworkers.
Yep.
And I mean, because you don't want to ruffle feathers and, you don't want to make it, awkward. But in this case, there's such a special bond between this team. And like, that's all the hockey community is talking about. Like, if you talk about any reporter like Ray Ferraro and Darren Drager, we're talking about like how close this team is and that they haven't seen anything like this in a very long time. And it only took Marchand a couple months to really like feel like that.
Love it.
And I'm pretty sure he felt like that with the Bruins, earlier in his career. It's just towards the end where he's like, hey, I want to come to you guys. I'll make some concessions to sign with you. And they're still like, no, we're good. We're going to move on. Almost makes you think like, hey, I actually did leave to a better situation. I'm still getting paid and I still have a chance at cups. But the other side of this too, the business side, is players don't want to tell players exactly what to do, because if they stay and take less money, then that could hurt other players going forward in the future, because the more money that players make, the more that the next generation will make, and that means that the cap has to go up and everything. So while it's amazing for us as fans in this franchise, you have to think about other free agents that are maybe looking towards long-term deals, maxing out. I mean, that's probably why, like you have a Mitch Marner that's going to be making 12, 13 million over in Vegas now for about 8 years after a sign and trade. Well, let's see what Connor McDavid's going to get next year and who is going to give it to him.
It'll be Edmonton, but I think it's going to be now. I think more of like the shorter term deal. He's going to make 15, and then his next deal will be 20. At least that's what I think will happen. But yeah. And the fact is that that these deals are also public knowledge. It's not as rude whenever it comes to them talking about just trying to keep it all together. And Brad Marchand's success with the Florida Panthers, it's kind of like you have two partners. One of them wants to break up, the other one doesn't. But the one that doesn't want to break up doesn't know the blessing that is at the end, at the light at the end of the tunnel. And I guess that's what Brad Marchand realized coming to the Florida Panthers. He didn't know about how much of a necessary split it actually would have been for him at the time. And now he's glowing and glowing even more. And
you make me think about my last relationships. You're going to make me cry.
Oh, God. Not saying that you're the example, not saying that I'm the example, but just the scenarios that happen out there. All right. Quick other poll question here before we transition to segment 3. Player we'd hate to see go the most, because we know that there might have to be a trade here. The majority of the poll says Eetu Luostarinen, even though I highly doubt that Bill Zito would actually make that trade. We actually got a response from Alex Baumgartner saying they'd put me at left wing before they trade Eetu Luostarinen. So as expected, the majority of the poll said Eetu, followed by Erod, and then J-Bo. Jesper Boquist there. So nothing. What do you, anything on that one?
So it sounds like I'm going to have to get an Alex Baumgartner jersey here soon. So Alex, if you're watching this, or if you catch wind of this, I need to know what number to get next time. So when I get a jersey, I got you. But yeah, it's definitely he's too low to rate. And I mean, just because how he's grown up with the Panthers and what he's grown into, and if I wasn't mistaken, he was like behind Draisaitl and McDavid with how many points they had, I guess,
At 5-on-5.
At 5-on-5, which you would think that would be like somebody like Barkov or Reinhardt and everything, but it was literally like that entire third line that was just about there. So. He takes his game to another level, which personally, a couple years ago, you didn't know if he had. He was just he was a centerman, and he would just plug and play. Now he's actually kind of cemented himself as a part of this identity of this team, and he's a huge contributor. So he would be the biggest loss. And then Erod would be the next, and then JBBQ would definitely be. But we're talking about money, but we're talking about impact on the game, mostly. It would definitely have to be that order. If I was going into a game 7, it would have to be that order.
Yeah. And add to a big part of it. And for a guy who's traded not from this regime, but the previous regime has definitely has been a lasting part of this squad, and definitely a big part of it as one of the first guys out on the ice for a PK when the Panthers need him. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where a former Panther, although he has retired from hockey, he continues to fight outside of the rink. We're also going to discuss more of our poll questions on opening night and the biggest hurdle for the Panthers three-peating. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment 3 here on this Friday, July 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Armando Velez here with Nich Fairbanks on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. And Nick, so a video went viral the other day on X on former Panther Nick Ternaski, someone also golfing on a golf course wanted to pick a fight with him. Although Ternaski's career was short with the Florida Panthers, it actually ended his career with the Panthers. Only played for less than 70 games in less than 2 seasons for the Panthers. He is still bringing the enforcer type just outside of the hockey rink. So the video of him fighting a random golfer on the same course. What were you thinking when you first saw that video?
I thought of Jerry Lawler from WWE, just because of the way this guy was getting tossed around. It made me think that they were actually in a ring and that this was all a setup. And that guy I don't know how he thought he was going to square up or that he had a chance, but why do people get so mad in situations like this? I mean, did he know who he was going up against at all?
No.
I don't think so. But even
the size advantage was big.
Yeah. And I understand there was some consumption of some beverages.
Yes.
That probably played that. It probably inflated his ego. But still, man, like, you got tossed around like a rag doll. Like, I would have just stayed down, to be honest with you. That was the first time I fall in the lake. Okay, Nick, we're going to be done with this. But I don't know.
Tried a second time.
He got thrown again. Like, no, they don't. But I don't want to say this is a great look for Nick at all. I mean, obviously he was defending himself and making sure that this guy didn't get way out of control. But at the same time, there's better ways to, I guess, mitigate some situations. And him knowing that he's the bigger guy and that he has that lifestyle, or that he lived that lifestyle, that maybe he would have been able to diffuse it rather than have the altercation that he did.
Yeah. In all seriousness, we hope that those things don't happen. But as far as relating it to hockey, that went viral on the socials yesterday. But all right, another poll question that we had here that we conducted was who we would like to see the Panthers play on opening night, and around 40% have chosen both the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs, while just under 29 on our Twitter poll says that. I do believe it ends up being the Tampa Bay Lightning for this year's version of opening night. But by the way, the schedule is set to release on July 16th. So it's a later release than last year. Last year it was July 3rd. This year it's July 16th, which they just agreed with the Olympic Committee, the IIHF, to allow the NHL. So maybe that was the holdup in the schedule. So your reaction to seeing the amount of the poll not mostly picking Boston or Toronto over Tampa Bay. Carolina was also one of the choices, but that one was 5%. So your reaction?
Not surprised with the top two teams. I mean, I think the Florida Panthers, or at least the fan base, is wanting to pick whatever meat is left on the bones of those two organizations, especially the Boston Bruins. I mean, we saw them last year during opening night with this, the banner raising ceremony. They were not interested in playing a hockey game. They wanted to go out there and try to even the score physically, and that scoreboard didn't show that at all. I don't think Toronto really does anything. I think you need to play them later in the season to get them where they're playing at their best and understand where they're at. So early season, it doesn't matter to me. I think it's going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning too, just because of the short travel time. And then secondly, it just kind of gets the players in the groove and everything. Not saying anything about Tampa, because I think they're going to be great next season as well. I just think that to start the season, I think they're going to try and start off a little bit slower, get the guys acclimated again, and hopefully, healthy.
I think it's going to be them as well. So we'll see what happens when we do see the release of the schedule come next Wednesday for the Panthers here. So we will see. Just Boston's in the middle of a rebuild, so I don't think it's going to be them. Canadian teams mostly start on the Wednesday, so we will see on that. But all right, the biggest hurdle that will be with the Panthers in their attempt to three-peat. So the answers were being the hunted, condensed schedule / Olympics, short summer, again, or lack of new blood on the team. So the answers were mostly short summer, again, at 38%, then condensed schedule / Olympics at 37%, being the hunted 15%, and then lack of new blood on the team is at 10%. So I would say I would go with the majority here of short summer again, because you think about this. We spoke about the 3 consecutive trips to the final, but those are 2 months of hockey logged throughout that. So you add that together, it's 6 months. The season's around 6 months, so you're getting a full season under them in these last 3 playoff runs alone, around 23, 24-ish games. So almost really a complete season after that. So I think it's valid for the poll to say short summer for the Panthers as far as what's the biggest hurdle. But I can understand how the schedule could be as well. So what do you think?
Well, I know Paul Maurice is going to have something to say about the schedule for sure. I think that's his bread and butter every season. He doesn't like the travel so much, but we'll see if the schedule finally catches up to them as far as the last 3 years I've really caught up. I'm going to go off script here. I'm actually going to say it's health. Just because, you have the idea that Tkachuk, is he going to go on an LTIR or is he not? Are all the other bumps and bruises going to heal? Is Bobrovsky still going to be as healthy as he's been for the last couple of years? Is the defense going to be healthy? It's just, I understand the Panthers have the next mentality up, but right now, with the way the team is constructed, they can't afford to lose at least more than 2 pieces, in my opinion. And if they do, then that's really going to have to they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and really see who they're going to be able to bring up and who's going to be able to slot in and actually make an impact. So I'm going to say health. is number one, and then I'll say the condensed schedule after that.
Yeah, and this is also the flaw of trying to bring everyone back, because of the depth is not as strong, and you're gonna have to try to rely on someone from Charlotte. If I know and the thing is, there's a lot of new blood coming into Charlotte this year,
Mm-hmm.
and are you gonna pull someone who may not be ready? That's another thing. Is the fact is, hey, good thing you're able to squeeze everything out of bringing the guys back. So, but what happens when the injury adversity part of things hit for the Panthers? So, how are they going to manage that?
I was going to say, maybe they call Zach Dalpe, for maybe a week or two and get him out of retirement.
Maybe.
But no, that's a really good point as far as, like them having to bring back, and it kind of unfortunately does limit the amount of depth they'll have up on the professional roster. But, you look to see who Charlotte's going to be bringing in. I think Mr. Devine has kind of shown what he's going to be able to bring. So he might be in a Cat's sweater sooner than we think. I'm not going to say this year, but he could be in a fill-in to get a taste. But, it's going to be interesting to see what Mr. Zito has up his sleeve in case something like that does happen.
Yeah. So we will see if how quickly the Panthers would need to get in there if that in the case of that happening. But hopefully we wish the team health. Maybe that's why they haven't made the trades of Evan Rodriguez or Jesper Boquist just yet, because they still need to see if they will need that depth to begin the season to begin with. So lots of questions still to be asked as far as the Panthers and the moves that they need to make in the future that will come, but it's just about when for this team. But Nick, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you as always for joining me on another successful Fairbanks Friday. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
No, thank you for having me on again, and everybody, you guys can follow me on X at Prudentia0. And again, it's summertime. Let's go out there and enjoy the weather, and let's just enjoy the time that we have with two-time Stanley Cup champ Florida Panthers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick, and I will see you next week, my friend.
See you then.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.